It's 6 p.m. on Tuesday, April 22nd here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Conn-young.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us.
We've been telling you the number of hours since the accident, but starting today, we will count the number of days passed since Wednesday morning when a nearly 7,000-ton Sewol-ho ferry sank into waters with more than 470 people on board.
It's been nearly 7 days now. The death toll has risen to 108, with more than 190 still unaccounted for. Search and rescue operations still continue.
Right, in Korea's southwestern coast, it has been in high gear day and night, but not a single survivor has been found since the day of the accident. Search and rescue efforts, that's where we begin this Tuesday evening at Paengmok-hang Harbor, roughly 20 kilometers from the site of the ship capsize.
So we have our correspondents on site. Let's go live to our Hwang Sung-hee and Kim Young-gil standing by at Paengmok-hang Harbor. So guys, what's the atmosphere there like?
We saw the official death toll exceed over 100 today, and with that, the atmosphere here at the Paengmok-hang Harbor appears to have become grimmer. Now, a dozen more bodies were recovered from the third and fourth floors of the vessel, which is where 23 bodies were recovered yesterday. Now, most of the victims retrieved over the past 2 days were high school students who were in the ferry's lounge when the vessel capsized. Bodies of 2 Chinese and 1 Russian passengers were also recovered overnight. Authorities say a lot of unrecovered bodies are believed to be located in the cafeteria of the vessel, as it was breakfast time when the ferry started listing, so the rescue team is trying to enter that area. Nearly 200 people still remain missing inside the sunken ship, and most of them are high school students. Now, family members of the missing have been camping out here at the Paengmok-hang Harbor, but they seem to be losing their last strands of hope.
That's right, Sung-hee. As I looked around the Paengmok-hang Harbor, I saw a lot of families in despair as dead bodies were transported ashore. A mother who lost her daughter burst out in tears while she was attending a Catholic Mass. It seems many people were participating in religious activities, praying for their loved ones. Religious volunteers were here to help people in their time of need, to hopefully help ease some of their pain and sorrow.
Me. Families of the victims say it's really good to have these kinds of religious services as we can pray and share our support.
It's not just the families of victims, but also many others who have come to Paengmok-hang Harbor to share in the pain.
Well, the weather has been very sunny here today, and apparently more divers are taking part in the search and rescue operations today to take advantage of the neap tide that has started. This has been Hwang Sung-hee and Kim Young-gil reporting live from Paengmok-hang Harbor.
Let's now try getting a better sense of the situation down in Jindo, the progress made by the search and rescue team, and what really could be done to better prepare for future accidents like such.
Well, for that, we have our marine rescue expert, David Jordan Smith, joining us live via Skype from the United Kingdom. He is Secretary of the International Maritime Rescue Federation.
David, thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening.
Let's start with the search and rescue operations here in Korea. Well, it is now in its 7th day. Now, in general, what are some of the challenges that search and rescue teams, including underwater divers, face in carrying out their mission under such circumstances?
Well, these are very difficult and tragic circumstances, and again, the sympathies of the international maritime search and rescue community are with the people of Korea. A mass rescue operation is defined as being one in which the search and rescue capabilities normally available are inadequate. So the major challenges are to find the additional resources in terms of rescue units, rescue teams, communications resources, coordination, its shoreside response, the medical teams, the whole system that needs to be set up to deal with an incident like this is very complex and obviously has to be set up very quickly and efficiently.
Well, it's been 7 days, as we've mentioned, and there are now talks of salvage operations in the pipelines later this week. Could you explain to us the bold difference between the search and rescue operation and the salvage operation, David?
Well, they are generally distinguished. A search and rescue operation is about people. You're trying to find people in distress at sea and, of course, rescue them. Salvage, strictly speaking, is about property. It's about material. So you would try and recover a ship or cargo from a wrecked ship. It's all about property. In a mass rescue operation, however, we need to somehow break down these distinctions sometimes. To take a fairly obvious example, a passenger ship broken down and drifting towards rocks. If that ship can be taken in tow by a tug and pulled away from the rocks, some might call that a salvage operation. You are saving the ship. But of course, it's also a search and rescue response. So the distinction is quite clear in general terms, but in the mass rescue response, where you need to enhance your responses, blurring the distinction is sometimes helpful.
Right, and so in practical sense, there might not be a distinct barrier between those two operations. Now, David, what needs to be done in your view by aid organizations and rescue groups to better prepare for future marine accidents like such?
Well, it's all a matter of planning and preparation. These are fortunately very rare events. The only downside of that is that you do have to plan for something which may only happen once in a career for an individual in the search and rescue services. It's really important to learn lessons from incidents of all kinds, including this sort of terrible event, to review the reports that will in due course be made into both the incident itself and the search and rescue responses to it, gleaning those lessons learned, disseminating them around the worldwide search and rescue community, which is something the International Maritime Rescue Federation, the IMRF, that's something we're doing.
Okay, David Jordan Smith, Secretary of the International Maritime Rescue Federation, thank you so much for joining us again today and sharing your insights again.
No, there is no news of any more survivors, but the families of the scores missing continue to wait, clinging on to the last bit of hope, camping out in an auditorium in Chindo.
The wait must be unbearable, it's indescribable, and we have a correspondent there at Chindo in the auditorium, our Hwang Jie rather, who joins us live. Jie, how are the families doing right now?
Guys, it's been an agonizing week of waiting for families here at the Chindo Gymnasium. And as you would imagine, the atmosphere is extremely heavy and depressing. Some are collapsing, some are having a hard time. Many actually are having a hard time eating and sleeping. Some are so ill they've been put on medication. I had a chance to talk with one of the emergency personnel here at the Chindo Gymnasium, and he described about the state of the families.
After several days, the families are exhausted both physically and mentally. We also feel very bad and sorry for them, so we are trying our best to give at least a little comfort to them.
Now, Jihye, I can't even begin to imagine what they must be going through. But Jihye, from what I can see behind you, it looks like the number of people there have decreased significantly.
Yes, you're right, Conn-young. There are fewer and fewer relatives of the families here at the Chindo Gymnasium. When bodies are identified, they're leaving to attend their loved ones. Representatives of the families are now in discussions on how to proceed with funerals. The families still here are clinging onto the hope of finding more survivors as the weather conditions improve today. There are notes at the entrance of the gymnasium, and one of them reads, "Come back soon, daughter, so we can have dinner together." It's truly a heartbreaking scene here at the Chindo Gymnasium. Yesterday, the representative of the families told the others that he asked authorities to wrap up search and rescue operations by this Thursday. He said the authorities pledged to do their best to meet the deadline. This has been Hwang Jie reporting from the Chindo Auditorium.
And the investigation to find out why and how the captain and the crew got off the ferry while more than 400 passengers were still inside continues.
And for more, we turn to our Hyun-young standing by at the news center. Hyun-young?
Guys, the latest is that the 4 additional crew members, now these are not the 3, including the captain, that are already put behind bars. Now they claim the crew tried to correct the ferry when it started to list, but failed because there was something wrong with the navigation equipment. They also claim that the captain did issue an evacuation order. Their arrest and detention warrants are in the process of being validated. Investigators say the warrants could be issued as early as later tonight. Their testimonies come after the Korea Coast Guard earlier in the day said the crew didn't even release the 14 life floats they passed on their way out. Now, each of those life vessels could have carried up to 25 people. The questioned crew members said they did try to release the floats but failed because they couldn't even get near them. The Coast Guard said it was about 9:30 a.m. Wednesday when the regional rescue team arrived at the accident site. It took the team about 30 minutes to get there, which means they knew about the situation at 9 a.m. And when the rescue team arrived, the ferry was already listing 50 to 60 degrees. And prior initial investigation had said the crew members started to escape the steering room at around 9:37 a.m. Now that's only about 10 minutes after the passengers were told to stay put with their life vests on. As a result, most of the crew members were able to get onto the rescue team's boat and escape from the ferry when hundreds of passengers were sinking with the ship.
Now, Hyun-young, so multiple factors really caused this tragic accident to happen. And one of them, it looks like, could be the ferry's operator.
That's right. The Special Prosecutorial Investigative Team has imposed travel bans on 30 additional officials related to the Cheonghaejin Marine Company, that is the ferry's operator. The prosecution is looking into whether the operator's management and the family which owns the company have evaded taxes or embezzled funds by making illegal overseas transactions. The latest travel bans come after the president of the company, Kim Han-sik, and Yoo Byung-on, former chairman of the company's parent firm, as well as his 2 sons, were banned from traveling over the weekend. And Korea's Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries is looking into revoking the ferry operator's business license. Cheonghaejin Marine Company's been in the investigators' sights ever since the accident happened last Wednesday. A ministry official says although the sunken ship needs to be salvaged before any conclusion is made on whether the operator indeed had contributed to the ferry's sinking, the crew's failure to evacuate the passengers is enough to cancel their license. Back to you both.
All right, that was our Hyun-young reporting live on the investigations ongoing on the ferry's operator and the captain and the crew. Now, there are so many what-ifs at this point. What if the captain had stayed behind to evacuate the passengers? What if the ferry operator had loaded less cargo? What if someone other than the rookie third mate had operated the ferry? But the biggest why is, why were the passengers told to stay put in the cabin when the Sewol-ho ferry first ran into trouble?
This piece of information has confounded Florida maritime experts who say that decision and the indecisiveness on the part of the captain and crew likely doomed hundreds on board. Our Yoo Dian has the details.
Maritime experts describe the announcements on the Sewol-ho ferry instructing people to stay in their rooms at the time of the accident as totally incomprehensible.
In 99.9% cases, the crew is on top of it. They are well trained and they are able to evacuate the ship in plenty of time.
The retired Commodore says it is unacceptable that the captain completely failed in his duties to take control during the crucial moments after the accident.
Key decisions should be made within the captain's mind within 5 to 10 minutes. As soon as he gets a report from all departments of the ship and assesses how much damage is done to the vessel itself.
Logs show that the captain of the Sewol-ho ferry, Lee Jun-seok, delayed evacuation for at least 30 minutes after the ship began to capsize. Others say the announcement telling people to stay where they were actually made the situation worse. Mario Vitone, a former U.S. Coast Guard maritime accident investigator, says if those announcements were not made, the passengers would have gone to the deck to see what was going on. Thad Allen, the former head of the U.S. Coast Guard, also says common sense dictates that when a situation is deteriorating, the crew needs to give up on trying to save the ship and pour efforts into saving the passengers. Yurian, Arirang News.
Now, the bodies that have been recovered from the Sewol-ho ferry are transferred either to hospitals or funeral halls. More are being released to their families today.
Our Shin Se-min is out at one of the hospitals in Ansan that is receiving the bodies. Se-min, what's the latest from where you are?
Conn-young and Daniel, a total of 11 victims have been released from the city of Ansan today. And of those, five were students who were released from this hospital, Korea University Ansan Hospital. And soon after that, another 5 arrived, bringing the numbers up to 11. Bringing up to 6, and as more have arrived, buses of mourners are visiting this funeral hall to pay their respect. And 21 more bodies are expected to be released at 8 different funeral halls in Ansan on Wednesday. And in a briefing held by the hospital a couple of hours ago, officials here say they're reviewing the possibility of releasing inpatients depending on their conditions. Now, this comes as the hospital has been saying that most of the patients' physical and mental conditions had improved since they were brought to the hospital the first day. And earlier today, parents of the students made an appeal at the Ansan Office of Education, urging for swift rescue operations and also criticizing the media for its indiscriminate reports on this tragic incident. They also asked for all of the society to help them through this very difficult moment. And yesterday, representatives of the families asked the authorities to wrap up the ongoing search and rescue operations by this Thursday, and the authorities said they would do their best to meet the deadline.
The teens who haven't been rescued yet, the ones that went to heaven, as well as the ones that survived, all need our care. The kids that survived feel guilty. At the hospitals, they're helping the students to comfort their minds and bodies.
Now, Se-min, we hear the memorial altars are being set up in the city of Ansan so that people can pay their last respects to those who have passed.
That's right. A memorial altar is set to be released and is expected to be ready by tomorrow, Wednesday, at around 9 o'clock in the morning. This group memorial altar is still in the process of being set up at this Ansan Memorial Olympic Hall, which is about just 10 minutes away from this hospital. And friends and relatives will be able to pay tribute to those who have passed. And not only here in Ansan, but also in the city of Incheon, from where the Sewol-ho ferry had left the shore, another group memorial altar will be set up at the International St. Mary's Hospital, which is where 7 other recovered bodies are being held. And that's all for now. And this has been Shin Se-min reporting live from Korea University of Ansan Hospital.
Now, Korea is not alone in this monumental task of combing the Sewol-ho ferry for survivors and bodies.
With U.S. President Barack Obama scheduled to visit Seoul later this week, Washington has made all of its resources in the region available to Korean authorities and says it will help with the investigation into what caused the ferry to sink whenever Seoul asks. Our Connie Kim reports.
The U.S. remains at the ready to help Korea in this very difficult time. The Pentagon said Monday that the Navy salvage ship USS Safeguard is now sailing to the waters of Korea in case Seoul asks for help with salvage operations once they begin. The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board has also pledged to help investigators determine what caused the ferry to sink if requested. The U.S. Navy ship USS Bunhammer Shar, which was conducting routine patrols in Korean waters last week, is already on the disaster site along with its helicopters. President Barack Obama, who is scheduled to arrive in Seoul for a 2-day visit later this week, has pledged full support in the ongoing search and rescue operations. The presidential advisor, Ben Rhodes, said this week during a press briefing that the Sewol-ho ferry disaster will take priority during Obama's trip to Seoul. In addition to the Sewol-ho disaster, President Obama and President Park Geun-hye are also expected to discuss North Korea's nuclear program. Rhodes said the door to dialogue remains open for Pyongyang so long as the regime is ready and willing to denuclearize. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And with President Obama arriving in Seoul later this week, North Korea is showing signs that it may be preparing for a fourth nuclear test.
South Korean Defense Ministry spokesman Kim Min-seok said Tuesday that increased movement has been detected at the Punggye-ri nuclear site. He added that Pyongyang is at a stage where it could carry out a nuclear test at any time. South Korea and U.S. forces are closely monitoring the situation, and the South Defense Ministry and the Joint Chief of Staffs have also set up an integrated crisis management task force to prepare for a possible test. Experts have speculated recently that a fourth nuclear test could be in the works ahead of Obama's visit to Tokyo and Seoul this week.
Now, the weather has been playing a big factor in the search and rescue operations down in Korea's southwestern coast, where this Sewol-ho ferry sank. And we'd like to find out what the weather is like today. And our Hong Sang reported earlier that there's a neap tide, and the rescue team will take advantage of that time to really put into high gear the search and rescue operations.
Right. Providing a glimmer of hope is the fact that one thing that we don't have control over, Mother Nature, has been rather cooperative or sympathetic towards the South Korean efforts to rescue and the search and rescue operations near the Sewol-ho ferry sinking area. We turn to our Michelle Park now for a look at the conditions down near Jindo, weather-wise. Michelle, is the favorable weather still holding up, and will it hold up there?
Well, yes, it's a bit foggy right now, but other than that, the conditions are favorable, like you said, and the tidal conditions are helping with the search. Now, neap tides we were talking about started today, which is when the sea currents is at the lowest level. Now, those conditions will last until Thursday, and until then, the search operations are likely to continue for 24 hours a day. Now, also along with the neap tides, one of the periods of the slow tides recently passed, and one more period is left at 7:31 p.m. local time. Within these periods, the tides will drop to below half a meter for an hour. Now, current temperature of the water in Jindo is at 11.8 degrees, with winds blowing at 6.9 meters per second, and the height of the waves is at 0.7 meters, which is considered calm, and the conditions look to be better for tomorrow. Now, the weather in Jindo for tomorrow, it looks very sunny and clear. Now, also due to the influence of the high pressure front, it will be less windy with calm tides. Now, for the rest of the nation, we can expect some mild weather conditions with warm temperature. However, there will be huge temperature gaps between the mornings and nights, so make sure you are prepared for that. Well, that's all I have at this moment. I'm Michelle Park. Back to you guys.
Well, that is a wrap from us at this hour, but just to give you a quick recap on the situation on the Korea's ferry disaster, 108 have been confirmed dead so far, and 194 remain unaccounted for. Well, what makes this incident or this accident all the more tragic is that most of these souls lost are very young students, those in a high school, a single high school in Danwon High School, in Ansan, which is a suburb area of Seoul, and they were off to a field trip to Jeju Island. Now, we don't know at this point for sure what the cause of the sinking was, but we know that whatever action taken by the captain and the crew immediately following the capsize should be made responsible, held responsible for these lives, for these hundreds of young lives who had a big future ahead of them. Well, thank you for joining us at this hour. I'm Conn-young.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Arirang News for the latest ongoing updates on the ferry disaster, or find us at arirang.co.kr.
Our thoughts and prayers from all of us here at Arirang TV are with the victims and families of those affected by this ferry disaster.